Welcome to Out of the Box from Hudson County Community College. Each month, we will bring you timely discussions about education, people, programs, events, issues and solutions that affect the education and enrichment of the people of Hudson County. I'm Christopher Manos, your moderator for these podcasts. Joining us today for a discussion about Hudson County Community College's Cultural Affairs program are Hudson County Community College President, Dr. Chris Reber, Department of Cultural Affairs Director, Michelle Vitale, and artist and architect, Jim Watt. Welcome and thank you all for being here today.
Yeah.
Dr. Reber, one of the many strengths of Hudson County Community College is the school's Cultural Affairs program. What makes Hudson County Community College's Cultural Affairs program so strong?
There are so many answers to that, and I think we'll be talking about that throughout the broadcast. One of our great points of pride at Hudson County Community College is our Fine and Performing Arts program, and I say that in the broadest possible sense. And we've actually had interviews in the past with Professor Riccadonna, who teaches in and oversees our phenomenal academic program in the Fine and Performing Arts. And we've also met Dr. Andrea Siegel, who's the curator of a nationally distinctive art collection that pervades every building on our campus, some 1,200 works of art, including some very famous artists, as well as New Jersey artists, local artists, and student artists. And the third leg on this point of pride stool, if I may, is our cultural arts program. We have a truly exceptional program of activities throughout the year, exhibits and presentations that really help bring together all of the elements, not only of the Fine and Performing Arts program, but bring together themes throughout the college and really are at the center of our educational mission. I've worked in higher education for 39 years at a number of different institutions, and I have never seen a cultural affairs program of this quality and magnitude. So it's a pleasure to be able to talk about it. My understanding, since this predates me, is that back in 2015, there was a committee of trustees, foundation board members, community members, students, faculty, and staff who actually came together under my predecessor, Dr. Gabert's leadership, to envision what we wanted the cultural arts to be and how that would fit into the other things that I just mentioned. And they very incredibly envisioned something way beyond what I think any of us would have believed would happen here. And they very smartly, shortly thereafter, I think in January of 2016, hired Michelle Vitale to actually direct our Cultural Affairs program. And Michelle, if I may just say a few words about you, she earned her MFA at Rutgers, New Brunswick. The Master of Fine Arts degree is considered the terminal degree in the fine arts. She has a rich background as an artist herself, and I can tell you, unlike anyone I think I can ever remember, you have a passion, not only for the arts, but for the whole educational enterprise. And so if I could ask you to tell us a little bit about your program, how it started, the things you're doing right now.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Lori Riccadonna. I was asked to be in a show that she was curating when it first opened. And I brought my work over, and I was doing something called the Gimme Shelter Project, which was addressing the homeless increase in the state of New Jersey of 14%. And I said, maybe we could do like a stitch-in, and maybe we could. She's like, you know what? She's like, they're looking for a director of cultural affairs. You'd be great. Because we were already planning, and this was just one piece at the gallery, and working with her and Jeremiah Typen and everybody at the college after I got the job, just really, like you said, the spirit is here. There's so many people involved. Even the maintenance team came in and visited me today, and Julio, who does a wonderful job leading the facilities team, was asking me about the work. And so there's a real interest, and that we all are, striving to make this a great thing. I can't take just the credit. I really can't.
But tell us a little bit about the annual art series. So there are lots of different things that happen. Most of the programming actually happens on the 6th floor of our Gabert Library, named for Dr. Gabert, where we also have a really distinctive gallery. Tell us about the program.
So the gallery, because of its size and its views, really leads the program. And I actually take inspiration from a visual thinking strategies approach, which was used at the MoMA. It was developed there. And it's to create supplementary programming underneath that, so that if people aren't visually attracted, like they walk in and they're not visually attracted to the 2D or the 3D object, they can learn about the art through lectures, workshops, in a variety of ways, and you try and meet the learners from where they are. And so I use that to develop our labels, to develop our programs, develop our language, and basically the exhibitions lead, all our cultural offerings, and that seems to work. And
meeting students, meeting individuals where they are is at the center of the community college mission. That is our mission, to meet students and communities where they are, and help them move forward and add value to their aspirations and to reach goals they might not have contemplated. So the art gallery and the adjoining space where we do a lot of programming on the 6th floor of our library has a panoramic view of Manhattan. And tell us a little bit about the 9/11 sculpture there.
That sculpture, it's a part of the beam. It was placed there directly in line with the Freedom Tower. It was there at the opening of the whole gallery. It was always there. It lights up. I'm not sure who the creator is, but it was something that the city got, and I think it's most likely because of the position that you can see the Freedom Tower directly across the water. I mean, it's kind of an unbelievable fit for a piece of sculpture.
It's an inspirational space appropriate to the programming that you do. Can you tell us a little bit about the program for the coming year? Some of the things you're going to be doing.
So we usually try and celebrate history along with the gallery, and whenever we can monopolize on that, we do. And last year we had the World War I show in celebration of the 100-year anniversary of the peace treaty. And so this year, the women's suffrage movement, even though it does have a date in 2020, we learned that it's better to let the gallery lead the programming and then get the community interested. And so we're starting the women's suffrage celebration, the movement of the celebration of the movement early, so that way we can get everybody inspired, and we hope to have lectures all year. And so when the event actually happens, all of our students are well informed, and our community members, that this is something that was big in our history and we should be celebrating it.
And just based on that description, it's obvious that your work really brings you in touch with and in collaboration with a whole myriad of other artists and historians. You're working with many people throughout our region and even throughout the nation. We have one of your colleagues here today, Jim Watt, who's both an artist and an architect. He did his MFA at Princeton. Tell us, Michelle, how the two of you connected, and then I'd like to ask Jim to tell us a little bit about what he does.
Well, Jim's mother is the executive director at Ocean Township Historical Museum, and it's a wonderful, great space. She does an amazing job, and she helped me last year with the World War I show. I had several local museums contribute tons of artifacts, and hers were really compelling. She had traced people's stories, personal stories of families throughout New Jersey. And when I saw that, I really knew I needed to have it in the gallery, just because it was reflective of our community on the broader level. And so we became friends, and then she told me that of course she would have a son that was an artist, an architect. You wouldn't expect anything less. And we had met. We went to Porta, one night, and he introduced me to Nutella pizza, which was very exciting. My daughter ate that very quickly. And we've been kind of friendly ever since. And Jim is an amazing painter. He is going to be in our show Relatable. So after the women's suffrage movement show called Power, the next show is Relatable. And Jim makes these extremely large-scale paintings that are so exquisite of landscapes and other things, chairs, like just regular everyday things that he just takes to a whole other place. And so we're very excited to show his work in that show.
And I know, Jim,
today.
your work has been on exhibit really throughout the world, and I'm also interested in the architecture piece and how that relates to art. You have played a leadership role, as I understand it, in reimagining Asbury Park.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your work.
Yeah, I'm an architect. I've been a practicing architect for the past 30 years, and I really started seriously painting when I started studying architecture at Temple University, and then I ended up getting my Master's of Architecture from Princeton University, where I studied with Michael Graves, who very much believed that architects should paint to kind of fully realize themselves as expressive visual artists. So that was really, when I was learning, when I was becoming an architect, I was also really immersing myself in the visual arts, and just fell in love with painting and art history and architectural history. And to me, I never really drew a strong line between them. I really thought that the ideas of one were so common to the other that really, to understand them in a cultural context, speaking of cultural program, that it was so important to kind of understand all of these different disciplines. And for me, it was really important to participate in those disciplines. And it's just something I really enjoyed doing, and something I've always enjoyed doing. So, I grew up in a world in my family when my mother started the Ocean Township Historical Museum when I was little. I mean, I don't know how old I was, but I was old enough to hold a paintbrush. And I very happily worked with her and her team to create the first museum. But I think I always shared that passion for her of not just history, but understanding things in a cultural context. And I think that's where my love of art and architecture really started, is to take a set of ideas that existed at a particular place in a particular time and understand how they manifest themselves through all of the arts. And I love that. I mean, I love that to today. And so, I also, very long story, and I won't get into it, but I ended up in the restaurant business as well. And people question me, you're an artist and an architect, why are you in the restaurant business? But to me, there's no more kind of, it's just adding things to the palate, right? So I've just added 2 more senses to the palate. And I love the idea of the sort of Japanese tea ceremony, where it's a completely designed experience, from the vessel that holds the tea, to the room that holds the people, to the setting of that room itself. And it's something that's how I love to think about art and design. And I think that it's an incredibly powerful, and in some ways sort of undervalued tool, in cultural tool.
And that reminds me that we're doing this broadcast from our Culinary Conference Center that houses our Culinary Arts Institute. We're very proud at Hudson County Community College of our nationally ranked culinary and hospitality program. And we know through that program that food is art. That art is a very important part, presentation of the art and science of our culinary program.
Yeah.
And so you talked, Jim, we're so fortunate to have you in partnership here and offering your expertise to our community. And you mentioned that you were inspired by your mother. And that reminds me that I happen to know that Michelle was inspired by her grandmother, who emigrated here from Italy. Can you talk about that, Michelle?
My grandmother was from a large family on the east coast of Italy, and she went to Naples and tried to get on the boat 3 times, and eventually she came over. And she worked at a factory in Verona, and she sewed American flags for a living. And I was not aware of this until one day she had pulled me aside and she had shared that with me. And after that, along with my mother's family, who many of them were lace makers from Rome, and I always knew those things were really special. The lace on a tablecloth or a dress that someone had made, that held a lot of value in our family. And when I got the opportunity to finally release myself from all the schooling that I had, I ran straight for that. And I've been doing it ever since.
You know, there's a real theme that has come out in these broadcasts when we talk to students, each of whom to a person has been inspirational in their own way. They tell us again and again that they're inspired by the people of this community and this institution, and how faculty and staff and peers and family members clearly have played such an inspirational role in their ability to achieve their goals. I know that your program, Michelle, not only touches our academic community, but you're bringing thousands of folks from our region and beyond into the gallery and into these programs, and you're bringing children here. Our students do an exhibit of their own art. And I'm just mindful of the fact that this rich program that you offer, and Jim, that you participate in, is touching the lives of so many people, probably in ways that we can't begin to imagine.
Yeah, that's what art does.
That's what art does. Excellent.
I just want to speak to the level of quality of what the kind of curatorial work that Michelle does and the gallery itself. I mean, my first exposure to the gallery, and when I first met Michelle was and Doctor, I met you that evening as well, was at the World War II.
World War I.
I mean, I'm sorry,
That's okay.
World War I show. It was a beautifully curated exhibit, and this space it's a world-class gallery. I mean, you know, the view and that's spectacular, but the space itself, as an artist, that's a wonderful space to hang work, and I think it's a great asset for this cultural institution to have that, and the work, to have somebody who's such a wonderful curator like Michelle, and can also approach the curatorial kind of practice as an artist as well. I'm just really thrilled and honored to be a part of it. So
thank you so much.
Well, we're honored and
it's really a special program here. So
yeah, well, I feel like with that space, I feel like I have the opportunity to show everyone how art is relatable. That's why the show that Jim is in came about, and I feel excited to come to work every day, but I also feel a burden, like I can't screw this up. I really need to bring it because I want everybody to love it. I want people to value art, and it changes people's lives. It makes, before I really focused on being an artist, I remember going to school and feeling like a little like I wasn't connecting, and then when I got art in my life, it made me like a better person. It made me more responsible. It made me do better in school. And people tend to, say things like, "Oh, why art? How do people relate to that?" Or, "Oh, I don't contemporary art." And the students come in, they really appreciate it. They love the opportunity to be that close to something for free. They just walk in the door. There's a lot of schools that don't offer that. The skills that our students get in the 2 years, I didn't get in my 6. I could even say that in my master's program, I did not get the skills that our students get in 2 years.
One of the things about this discussion is the Cultural Affairs mission goes right into line with the transformational education. And when you're talking about how it can change lives, it can change how people look at the world. And
at each other.
Exactly.
And this is not just inward looking, it's outward looking as well. So, we take the community and our title as a community college very seriously. And, we're all about the community. But as we've already discussed, your ability to make this impact and offer these programs on our campus is fundamentally tied to your networking and collaboration and partnerships with people like Jim and others throughout the community. But you also do things in the community. So I'm mindful of something you're going to be doing in September. You know, the art also has a real relationship to social justice, social activism, right? And Michelle is she's been invited to be a panelist at the Art and Social Activism Festival in Manhattan in September. Tell us a little bit about that and how that relates to the work you do here.
So part of the spirit of my work, and it's not only knitting, but it's, you know, when I was younger, I volunteered for the first time at a senior housing center for nuns, and I would watch The Price is Right with them, and like that was huge for me because it taught me that like everybody counts. And so from there, I worked on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. I worked at Habitat for Humanities. I've worked for the United Way. I always feel like that's a big part of myself that I like to incorporate. I feel like, and I also feel like people want that. Like they want to feel good about themselves and help. When I did the Gimme Shelter project, I did stitch-ins with the community because the homeless count in the state of New Jersey went up 14% after Sandy. A lot of people don't realize that, and people were, they would call people in shelters the new homeless. And I was working with United Way, and they were doing a blanket drive to help, and I thought, these blankets are going to get wet if people are homeless. And so I just wanted to do something cheap where people had pride in that one moment, and that this was even though homelessness most times is permanent, these people from the Sandy and the increase that they could move on, and so we made blankets with small tarps and pillows that attached to it in pockets so that the beds in the shelters became their home for that time. And the state of New Jersey was so reactive to that project. I was taped on Verizon. Parsons School of Design featured the project in one of their first community outreach programs. And I kind of feel like at that point I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to talk about the environment. I want to talk about helping people. I want to keep this as real as possible. And if I don't ever make $1 off my work, I don't care. But that's the great thing, you know, that's why I get to ask to places like that, because I think that spirit, everybody wants to be a part of that, you know, they want, you know, and especially with the Gimme Shelter project, like I had people calling me, a radio station started advertising the project, and I don't even know who they were, and people would call me and say, can you come pick up, my grandmother knitted these blankets for you, can you come pick them up so that you can take them to the shelters? And it became this whole thing, and I worked with Keene University, I worked with Montclair, the library there. People were asking me to come, and my mother would help teach people how to knit. It was like a real DIY situation, you know, but the result is, you know, and so now it's like just in my practice, whatever I'm angry about or whatever I feel like I can't help, now I'm knitting smog. That's my newest project, and I'm making these prototype respirator masks just so people realize that, you know, our air quality is suffering. And these are the types of works that'll be on exhibit there. And I'm speaking with the executive director of the Earth Day Initiative, John Oppenheimer there. I mean, John Opperman, I have to say that right. And it's an exciting thing to do, you know, with your work. And I do feel like that relates to the college. You know, I feel like this is probably the best job for me ever. Because I always felt like that. I always felt everybody should be involved. Everybody should have a chance to see art. Everybody, you know, it shouldn't be $20 to go to the MoMA. You know, like, and I'm glad places like Target stand up and allow those opportunities for people, you know, because there's a disconnect, you know, and I feel like by having this beautiful gallery, you change people's lives who maybe never even get to a museum or never get to, you know, and Chelsea.
You said so beautifully that, you know, underpinning all of this is a shared value that every person matters.
Yeah.
And everyone's involvement is celebrated. That's an important value at this college, and one of the things our college community particularly values is diversity, equity, and inclusion in the very broadest possible sense. We have one of the most diverse student bodies in the nation.
Yeah, and I love it.
Consistent with the diversity of our community. namely Jersey City, that's the most diverse city in the United States, or maybe second. And can you talk a little bit, Michelle, about how diversity as a theme pervades the Cultural Arts Series?
You know, I set challenges up for myself just to keep the job interesting. So last year I said to myself, I want to have a jazz exhibition because I just want the one student who works in Goldman Sachs maybe 10 years from now, or the 2 or 3 students, or maybe there'd be 20, and that would be great, to say, I saw a jazz show at my community college, right? And I worked. WBGO was hook, line, and sinker. They were ecstatic to work with us. They brought a Hispanic-influenced jazz band to the college, and then they even went the extra mile and advertised on the radio station, the concert, said our name on it. It was phenomenal, but it really, the inspiration was the students. I was like, every time that's really like my goal is to say, like, how can I, if I was somebody who really know that much about women's suffrage, like, how can I present this in the best way possible? And in the show coming up, we have some amazing pieces of one woman who was an immigrant herself, hand wrote the naturalization questions and stitched it together with ribbon. It's an Americana piece on purpose. Like, you look at it and you think, like, maybe, you know, but it looks a little Martha Stewart, like, but it's all on purpose, because she and in her little statement, she says, how many of those questions do you think you could answer? You know, and she talks about how she had to study. It took her 10 years, you know, so those are the kind of works that I try and bring to the college, to just make it, again, relatable, you know.
So we talked about the theme of women's suffrage, the Latino jazz. I know you've had in the works that are presented here themes that emanate from the LGBTQ community, from the African American community, and on and on. And it's just another dimension of the impact you're having on our campus.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
Michelle, can you speak to, in terms of the transformational aspect of education here, some of the things that bring the students together as they go through the program here at Hudson County Community College?
Sure. So we, you know, I'm a trained museum educator. I worked at the Jersey City Museum, and then also I've done workshops at the Newark Museum, at the Morris Museum, and I'm also an educator. I'm a licensed New Jersey teacher. So I offer free gallery tours to not only our college community, but also outside. If there was a business that wanted to come in, we have public schools that come. And one of my favorite times are those times when people come in, and at the beginning they're a little hesitant. The class is a little bit like, oh, art, you know. And then by the end, you know, somebody takes a chance and they share. They say something like, you know what, I really love the way the sun looks in that picture. And somebody's like, you know what, I do too. Like, and these may be people that never really even talked before. And one time Joe Gallo brought his class, and I just had this memory, and the student was all pumped to tell me that he hated his visit at the MoMA. And I just was like, I'm glad you're sharing this, because that just shows what an impact that had, that you're sharing this now with like 25 of people that you go to class with. You know, he's like, oh yeah, I just hate it. I'm like, yeah, but you can. That's the great thing about art, right? You can't, how many classes can you go to and you can say, I hate that answer? Like hardly any, right?
Right.
So art provides that. It allows people to, I said, as long as you can back it up and you can say why you hate it and it's an educated response, you can hate it. So, you know, those things are fulfilling to the students. It gives them a sense of identity, and art does, in fact, build a collective identity. I mean, you've seen it in like Soho, in Asbury Park. You know, the arts are what brings communities together, usually first. And then the restaurants follow, and then the new houses, you know, and then the artists move on to find something else cool. So I see that in our students. I see that we had an Alvin Ailey dancer come, and she did a program with us with New Jersey PAC. And one of the students, the program was you had to tell a story about yourself, very personal story, and then share it with the group, and we would make one dance as a group together. And the student was a student in one of my classes, and I had interacted with her, but not enough to know this about her. And she had told me that growing up, she had to live her parents divorced and she had to live 1 year in Mexico and 1 year in California, and then go back to Mexico. And she said, and just learning the different languages, the different customs every year, she felt she was just in a tug of war. And so she stood in the middle, and then everybody pretended that they were. And so through dance, we all bonded. And I have to say, after that, the students that were in my class that participated in the program, there was a bonding there that was definitely not there before. And I don't know how you would pull that information out of someone in a group setting without the arts. You know.
Jim, do you have any other thoughts about things we could be doing here in the future that would meld community and
Well, I was just
college?
first of all, I think that it's such an important time in a student's life when they're when they're out of high school and they're starting at it's really at that point, and I'll just speak for myself, that's when the world of art and culture and language, right, and that these things, painting, architecture, literature, poetry, food, these are a cultural language, right, and they're loaded with meaning, whether we know it or not. And to start to really take responsibility for living in a world that's full of language. And even if we're consuming the language or creating the language, there's a responsibility there. And I think that that's just such a beautiful thing. You know, I taught architecture for many years at New Jersey Institute of Technology, and to just see my students at a point where they were ready to understand that and take that responsibility, I think is just so beautiful. So I'm just sort of inspired by the conversation, just relating to my own experience being 18 years old and kind of discovering this like magic. You're like, wow, this is kind of magic.
And then there's another really neat dimension among what we call our returning adult students. So in addition to our traditional age students, you know, we have students that are here after a whole career. And I'm thinking of one that we interviewed, Mr. Hewitt, who had a background in IT. He had a whole career in IT, and decided he wanted to do something different. He loves to cook. He came here and finished our culinary program, and he's now an honors student and finishing his bachelor's degree in our partnership program with Fairleigh Dickinson University. He wants to go on and earn a master's. He tests recipes for the public broadcasting food series.
Nice.
And he's in his 60s.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, there's so many stories like that of people who are doing serious work at a later point in their life, you know, because of an availed opportunity to kind of learn about something that they had a passion about. The other thing that I think really strikes me about the importance of having a real gallery in an educational institution like this one has to do with, I think, where we are with information technology and social media, and people of all ages are kind of addicted to this screen, right? Which has no materiality, which has no tactility. And they're living so much of their lives, I'm guilty of it as well, through this kind of virtual thing, right? And I think that we as human beings need tactility, right? We need to be able to touch and feel and shake somebody's hand or give them a hug, and in the world of art, we need to see that image, we need to see that piece, that artifact, as opposed to experiencing it as an image, a digital image, because it's totally different. It's completely different, and I think it's such a gift that the students and the faculty here have the ability to stroll through that space and see artifacts and walk around them and get close to them and then get far away from them. And, you know, I think that just the tactility of having a gallery, or the tactility that's available through a gallery, is such an important, it's like oxygen that we really need right now. And I think especially whether it be an 18-year-old student or a 60-year-old student here, or a faculty member, to be able to go in that space and experience that, I think it's just something we all need. And it's not readily available to a lot of people. Right. So it's great that it's here.
Yeah, and it's so reassuring to hear when, like, Bergen County Community College, people come in and they're like, wow, and I'm like, yeah.
Something we didn't really touch upon is we also you incorporate student art into the exhibit.
Oh, right, yeah. In our programming, every semester we incorporate a student show, and this is really, it celebrates the hard work of the students, the art students at our college, but also, the professors that we have. And that is led by, the charge is led by Lori Riccadonna, who's the head of the art department, and then Jeremiah Typin, who's the head of the computer arts studio. And together they really inspire the students, but I also think the gallery inspires the students because every year the work keeps getting better and better. When we first started, it would be like, people would be like, oh, you frame it, just the little things that you would expect from like a 20-year-old budding artist, like not realizing like, presentation matters. And now the students come in, they're like, this is a canvas that I've stapled by myself. Their skills are beyond like anything that I had at a 4-year and college. And they're really in it to win it. I see them start coming in like as soon as Lori announces, like scoping out which wall they want and taking real ownership and pride in their degree and being at Hudson and having that beautiful view. They'll come in and they'll selfie away in front of their work, and it's really great because I know artists even my age that haven't shown in a gallery like that,
And it's a moment of pride for their families and their significant others who come in.
And it values that art is a real profession. That this is a possibility and that there is a chance that you will go on and you'll sell your work or you'll find it in one way or another. And you can see in their final projects where they're going. Like some of them will really be into like the video or photography, and then other artists you can see, well, that's a future book arts person, or that's definitely a future painter. And it's exciting that with our 2-year program, like, the work is really unbelievable that comes out of it, and like I said, every year it's getting better and better. And I think it's becoming a highlight at the college too, because
Absolutely.
our audience, people are coming in now and they're trying to buy the student work, and we're getting like people. I always can tell when a show is going to do well because people will start coming in before the show opens, and we'll be like, not yet,
That's great.
So yeah.
So Jim, if you could describe Hudson County Community College and the Cultural Affairs program in one word, what word would you choose?
Well, I wish I had more than one word, but if one word, I would say inclusive.
And Michelle?
I would say resourceful.
Dr. Reber?
As always, inspirational.
So inclusive, resourceful, and inspirational.
Yes.
Our thanks to Dr. Reber, Michelle, and Jim for being with us today. And thank you for joining us for this session of Out of the Box. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your friends and family, and visit our website at hccc.edu.